last episode, we did our team rankings and quickly went through who we thought was going to be great, who was going to be bad, and everything in between. Um, this episode, we're going to do maybe something a bit similar with our underrated and overrated teams, as well as kind of discuss some of the coaches that we think are going to be on the hot seat. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Nothing too special today.
Yeah, exactly. We took our list from last time where we ranked where we thought, I guess the power rankings. Yeah, they're power rankings. And we took from the internet some of the more reputable rankings or their sites. We took how they ranked players and teams. And I guess this is somewhat of a commentary on them, but a bit more streamlined because we're just talking about overrated and underrated teams based on how these outlets and how the media overall tends to perceive these teams in comparison to how we perceive them.
Mm.
So, yeah, I think we're ready to get into it.
Yeah.
I have two overrated and underrated for the AFC and
Okay.
the NFC. So, I will quickly go first with
Yep.
I'll start with the underrated
Okay.
teams. So, I think from looking at this list, it's pretty clear that they're quite a lot lower on the New Orleans Saints than we are.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at these numbers, we think the Saints are a top 10 team in this league.
Mm-hmm.
Both have them at number 8.
Yep.
We have an 18, a 13, a 20, an 18, a 17. That's preposterous. Have they looked at the roster?
Yeah.
How do you put 17 teams? How do you put 19 teams in front of the Saints? And you look at them from head to toe. You look at their coaching. You look at everything on the roster. I think they're just kind of overstating the fact that they have Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill as their quarterbacks.
That's exactly it.
And honestly, this is going to be the best situation Jameis Winston's ever been in.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of want him to start. I kind of want him to succeed. I think it'll be really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll have to see on that. But considering the fact that they do have, Cameron Jordan, Marshawn Lattimore, Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably the best offensive line in the league, if not top 3.
Yep.
I think it's insane that anyone has them in the bottom half of the league, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of difficult. I do agree with you in the sense that they are being a bit underrated. I guess the thing is, it's clear the reason they have them at low is just due to the current quarterback situation. But it also feels like a lot of the time when we talk about teams that are struggling, the main thing they have problems with is their quarterback. Now, that being said, Jameis Winston isn't a scrub. He threw 30 touchdowns, but he also threw 30 interceptions, which was a problem. But I think I guess you can put him at a bit of a question mark. But I also with the rest of the roster though, I 100% agree in the sense that if Jameis Winston's your weak link, that doesn't justify you putting them from top 10 to 18, 19, 20 overall in the league. Because I think if you look at the overall team, there's teams that are way worse off than the New Orleans Saints, even with Jameis Winston.
Mm-hmm, exactly. We're going to talk about some of those teams in the overrated section.
Oh,
but
yes, we are.
Man, I just can't imagine this Saints team, such a high floor Saints team with probably the epitome of high ceiling, low floor, and Jameis Winston as their quarterback, as incredibly high risk, incredibly high reward. So that's gonna be really interesting to watch. I don't think we saw Taysom Hill last year as the starting quarterback. He's not really a quarterback.
Right.
It's Winston. It's going to be
He's
Jameis Winston. He's literally everything. He's literally everything but a quarterback.
Yeah.
Fair. I think the Saints are going to be really interesting this year. I think one of the other things that's incredibly overstated, or I guess not overstated,
Understated.
undermentioned,
Yeah.
but it should be overmentioned, is that a lot of the time the media will tend to favor teams that got better in the offseason. The Saints didn't really have too many ways to go this offseason. They were really, really pressed up against the cap. Not only that, they were well over the cap. So they had to make a lot of big decisions. So yeah, maybe they got a little worse as far as their depth goes.
Yeah,
I think isn't exactly a minus.
Yeah, I actually think in terms of the offseason they're very kind of similar to the Kansas City Chiefs in the sense that I guess the Kansas City Chiefs did a lot for their offensive line, but overall they didn't really do a whole lot. And sometimes it's not necessary. Sometimes that's not a bad thing. I think just with the position that the Saints are in, I just don't know what else people were expecting them to do. So
Yeah,
and and
thank you.
and and, yeah, and they still look great on paper. So I mean, I don't know what we're talking about here.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Uh, the media tends to look at those off seasons, the flashy
Yeah.
ones, the ones where teams did a lot. The Saints never really do,
Yeah.
and yet here they are, still as one of those tough teams to beat in the league. Not only that, but probably one of the really tough teams, one of the
Right.
better teams that will probably beat anybody on any given day. So yeah, I think they're super underrated in that regard. And the other team in the NFC is in their division. It's the Carolina Panthers. And, look at these numbers. They're being held here 28, 26, 26, 28, 27.
Yeah. The average is 24.7.
Yeah, those are some really low rankings for the Carolina.
Yeah.
Uh, that's I think it's also due to the fact that people are pretty pessimistic on Sam Darnold, but
Which is fair.
and the fact that they didn't really do well last season. But I mean, they had really good games that they just kind of lost at the last minute.
And no
That
Christian
game,
McCaffrey for like all but 2 games,
yeah,
3 games,
exactly.
whatever it is.
Not a lot of teams, if they had Christian McCaffrey and lost Christian McCaffrey, would have.
Done that, and they did it with Teddy Bridgewater, and it's yeah.
The Panthers are one of those teams that you saw them play well for 3.5 quarters every game, and
Hmm.
yeah, they lost a lot of games they should have won. They had
Hmm.
a really close game against the Chiefs. I remember that one, and I don't know. You look at Matt Rule; he had a really good first year despite the record.
Yeah.
He's a good first year coach. He'll
Hmm.
keep that going. They had a really young defense. Give them another year. You draft Terrace Marshall as an extra receiver. You got really good receiver depth now. Even if you lose Curtis Samuel, you
Yeah.
got Chris Caffrey back. You improve that offensive line a little bit. Uh, I mean, just look at this team. This team is way better than the 28th ranked team in the league.
Yeah, I agree with, and I guess I would hope the approach they're going with this is we're not going to rate Sam Darnold until we actually see him play, which I guess which if they go from that standpoint, I guess I can kind of understand it. But like I think if you just look at the current situation that he's in with the Carolina Panthers, it's already so much better than the New York Jets. That's difficult not to at least kind of like put some type of positive trajectory on it because I think there's no doubt he's going to be better. It's just a matter of how good that's going to be. He has Robbie Anderson now. He has Christian McCaffrey, who also participates in the passing game. Like he still has a lot of nice options there, and that defense is still not to be reckoned with. Like they had a really, like they actually had a that was probably one of the most underrated defenses last year, and they got better. So I mean, like again, like you said, uh, it, they're definitely not the 28th ranked team in the league. Yeah, team in the league. Like to me, I think this is going to be one of the most exciting teams to watch this year if Sam Darnold does indeed go off. Because you look at the pieces there. Like I think they have so many pieces that could potentially make this team like a playoff contender come September.
Yeah, and with that extra wild card spot, I think it's absolutely possible. And I mean, I think people are forgetting every player that's gone off to a team not coached by Adam Gase has done better. Look at
Ryan
Robbie Anderson
Tannehill.
on the lineup. Robbie Anderson is on that roster, had a really good year
Uh,
last year. Ryan Tannehill is if you need a quarterback example.
oh,
And
God.
he's not really in a quarterback friendly system, and yet he's playing way better. So I think Sam Darnold, who's still really young and still has a chance to morph into a great quarterback, just has a great chance to succeed. I'm
Yeah.
really looking forward to seeing J.C. Horn in his first year. I don't know if he's better than Patrick Surtain, so that might be interesting to watching with the
Yeah.
Broncos, who I actually want to talk about next, but we'll get to them.
Hmm.
Uh, and another thing, I mentioned Terrace Marshall before. Apparently, Terrace Marshall was drafted by the Panthers because the Saints were next, and they knew that the Saints wanted to take Terrace Marshall. So, we'll talk about division rivalries. I kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. I think like so in regards to JC Horn, I think he's gonna be really fun to watch regardless. I think both him and Patrick Surtain were gonna be Surtain. I think in my opinion, Surtain was a better player, but you really can't go wrong with either of them. Like they're really like it's literally picking between like a Ferrari and a Lambo. Like you really can't go wrong with either of them. So I mean, I'm sure the Panthers are fine with either of them, but I like the fit a lot as well, so I mean I'm not complaining.
Oh yeah, exactly. The fit's really good,
Yeah,
so it'll be fine regardless. And
yeah,
yeah, so those are my underrated teams in the NFC. We'll move on to the Denver Broncos, who I think are pretty much in the exact same spot as the Saints and
Mhm.
the Panthers, where they have really good rosters that are just understated in the rankings because no one knows what the quarterback situation is going to look like. I I kind of had an optimistic view of it in the last video where I said that Drew Lock is the ceiling and Teddy Bridgewater is the floor.
I
Yeah,
remember that
but
take, yeah.
I mean, very rarely did we see that ceiling with Drew Lock last year. So I think a lot of people are rightfully pessimistic about him, and maybe I was a bit too optimistic. But I think having that competition could definitely help. It
Yeah.
could help both of them. Teddy Bridgewater has been really unlucky through his career, and I think this is one of his last chances to really show that he can be a mainstay quarterback in this league. I think if this year doesn't work out, he's going to be a career backup for a little while.
Yeah.
So this is really his last chance to start, as much as I hate to say it.
Yeah.
Um, so he's going to have that chance. But if you look at the rest of the roster, you got a good running back room with Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams. You got a good offensive line. Garrett Bowles has emerged as one of the best left tackles in the league. So whoever does start a quarterback is going to be protected really well. You got one of the best receiving rooms in the league. You have a really, really good defense, particularly from that great pass rush in the front seven with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, who's come back for a year. And that secondary is incredible.
Yeah.
Fangio is also a coach that hasn't really had a chance to prove himself because of all the injuries, but he'll get that chance this year.
Yeah.
This is really kind of a prove it year for the Broncos. What with the Chargers coming up and looking real strong over the next few years, the Chiefs having this window right now. This is kind of the Broncos' chance to show that they can.
Hey, you forgot a team.
Yeah, there's a reason I left them out.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I
Yeah.
mean, I I
Yeah.
think I think what we're looking at here is a team that's really on the they have the chance to do something really good. And I think
Yeah.
the rankings here, if you look at the numbers that the Broncos have,
Mhm.
they are, if I can find them, they're really low, like 26, 26, 25, 28. That's ridiculous for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah.
Like they could just not start a quarterback and be better than 28. Same
Yeah.
with the Panthers.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. The Panthers could start Christian McCaffrey at quarterback and be better than 28th in the league. I just don't understand where these rankings are coming from.
Yeah. I think if you look at the Broncos outside of their quarterback situation, I think this actually, I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but this might be the most complete team all around, without with the exception of the quarterback position. I'm sure I'm sure there's teams where you could argue it, but I look at their wide receiver group, their running back room. I just it seems like it's clear their only weakness is quarterback, and if they were to address that hole, that massive hole right now, I think they're probably like the most one of the one if not the most complete team in the league. I don't know I don't know how controversial it is, but like that defense is unbelievable. It still is. They're getting Von Miller back. They have Simmons. They like like Vic Fangio hasn't even had the chance to do it with a competent quarterback. And I mean, we'll see if what happens with the Aaron Rodgers saga, but they might get Aaron Rodgers. If the
That's
Bron-
true.
if the Broncos get Aaron Rodgers, this team's gonna be unbelievable. And like I get why, and I get people are and like you said, I get why people are pessimistic about Drew Lock. I get it. Like he's not, at least not right now. He's not a starting quality quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater might be. We'll see, but definitely not a franchise quarterback. But like even then, like the other pieces on this team do not deserve to be ranked 21.9. Sorry, like the average pick for the Broncos is like 21.9, 22. They're not the 22nd ranked team in the NFL. Like it's kind of bananas to me how people are choosing to let the quarterback narrative, at least I hope it's a quarterback narrative, to torpedo the Denver Broncos rankings, but But the Chargers, in my opinion, I think they're going to be absolutely unbelievable. But anyways, yeah, we can move on to the overrated. We basically touched the main ones I want to talk about.
Okay. And if you want, you can start us off with the overrated because I rambled a ton in the underrated section.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
No
Um,
denial there.
no, no, not really. Sorry, I was half listening because I was picking out which team I wanted to pick apart first because there were a couple where I wanted to just completely go off. But
Yeah,
um,
go
the,
ahead.
f- the first one I really want to touch on was the Seattle Seahawks. The Seattle Seahawks are ranked at 12.6. ESPN has them at 6. NFL.com has them at 8. Sportsnaut has them at 8. The other ones have them at like 12, 17, 12, 10. And Sporting News has them at 24. That's actually right about where I have them, to be completely honest with you. Um, they have Russell Wilson, who's an absolutely there's no doubt a franchise quarterback. They have DK Metcalf. They have Chris Carson. They have Tyler Lockett. Those are all great pieces, nice pieces to have. My problem is they have nothing else. Nothing. That defense was one of not the worst defenses in the league last year. Their offensive line is absolutely atrocious. The other teams in that division beefed up their defensive line, where Russell Wilson's now going to be running for his life with almost no protection from the Seattle Seahawks offensive line. I think 12.6 is being extremely generous. I think they're probably going to be a bit lower, like probably a bit lower. Like we both had them. We both had the. I had the sorry, I had them at 13 in my preseason rankings. You had them at 16. Like after having a bit more time to think about it, I think they're probably going to be somewhere between like where you said 16 and maybe a little bit lower between 16 and 20. Because like I just Russell Wilson's a great piece. Do not get me wrong. Like and quarterback is no doubt about it the most important part, the most important position in the NFL. But they have nothing else there. And I have trouble thinking they're like because if they have a bad defense, you're gonna need to outscore your opponents. I just don't see the Seahawks being able to do that right now with what they have.
Yeah, the Seahawks are one of the teams I wanted to talk about too. I think you pretty much covered everything I want to cover. Sixth in the league is incredibly ambitious
Yep.
for a team that's the third best in their division.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Niners and the Rams have
Agreed.
surpassed them. I think that's pretty obvious from the makeup of the rosters and their past successes in the
Right.
playoffs, which the Seahawks have had none because they lose in the first round every year. But yeah, no, I think it's really just past biases and Russell Wilson that brings them up here. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have a lot of star power, don't get me wrong. Bobby Wagner's there, DK Metcalf's there. That's really all. And Russ and Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
That's it. Like as
Yeah.
far as names go, you don't really have much else. Quandre
Mhm.
Diggs emerged as a Pro Bowler last year. That's really all you can say about their entire team.
Yeah.
Like Pete Carroll is really going to have a tough time this year. So
Right.
yeah, pretty much you covered everything. The Seahawks are going to have a really rough year. Those six division games are going to be rough for them.
Yeah.
I can
Oh
see
yeah.
it now. Russell Wilson might get hit more than he ever has in his career,
I don't think
as you
there's a doubt
said.
about it.
Yeah, so that's gonna be pretty insane. What else you got?
The next one, I don't know if this is controversial or not, but I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. Um, and the so I'll just read the numbers off here again. ESPN had them at 16, NFL at 21, NBC at 21, Sportsnaut at 18. The Lions had them at 10. CBS had them at 14. Sporting News had them at 11, and Sports Illustrated had them at 17. Um, so again, overall, that's not like an overly outrageous line. You had some 16s, some 21s, some like I have an issue with the 10, the 14, and the 11. Like I just don't know how you look at a Dallas Cowboy because again, we know what this team is about. This team is all about firepower. They got Dak Prescott back. They're going to be getting Dak Prescott back. The thing is, we don't know which version of Dak Prescott we're getting. That was an extremely gruesome ankle injury. We don't know how he's going to recover from that. If he's ever going to get back to that form again, he might, but we don't know if he's going to or not. And the problem I have with the Dallas Cowboys in the offseason they had is they put little to no effort in actually addressing the biggest hole in their team, which is their defense. Um, I believe they drafted Patrick Surtain in the first round, correct?
That was the Broncos. They had drafted Parsons.
Parsons, right? So yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was an unbelievable draft. I knew they got a really good defensive player in the draft. Yeah, so they got Parsons, which is an unbelievable ad. But again, if it just seems like Jerry Jones is going to the bargain bin for his free agent signings for his defense. I don't think when you have and when you have a defense that's that bad, you can't afford to be using your discount options for your players when you need like quality players. Like that again, Trayvon Diggs might take another step. I thought he was actually pretty good in the second half of the season last year. They at least have some pieces there, but like they need more than that, especially when you have a team like the Washington football team, which actually added a couple new weapons. Like the Washington football team are geared up and ready to go this year. Like I think they're going to be unbelievable, but there's just so many question marks about the Cowboys. I think it's even difficult to have them at like 16 and a half, like at 16 and a half and not closer to 20. But again, that's nitpicking. But like, yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't see how you can rationalize the Dallas Cowboys being a top half team in the league this year.
Mm. Yep.
Even if Dak Prescott is what everybody projects him to be, there's just no world where I see it.
Mm.
Their defense is not good right now. It's
Yep.
a lot of young players, to be fair. They drafted a lot of good players on the defense, like Kelvin Joseph in the second round, Osa Digazoo in the third. I mean, they did, and Micah Parsons in the first, obviously. Trayvon Diggs last year in the second round. They obviously have addressed it. Just they've addressed it in the draft and from really bad free agents, like bringing in fucking Keanu Neal and DeMonte
Yeah.
Casey from the Falcons. Did,
Keanu
did they
Neal.
know that the Falcons were a bottom three secondary in the league last year?
No, they didn't apparently.
Those were really strange pickups. So I mean, it's just for depth. But you let go of Chidobe Awuzie, who might have been your best player in the secondary last year. It's really strange what they're doing, what they did with their defense. And I mean, I think their defense got a little worse last
Mm.
year. They still don't really have a pass rush. Demarcus Lawrence is just alone there. If he gets doubled, then
Mm-hmm.
they're getting pressure on the quarterback. It's kind of hilarious. So that offense, which is still it has a lot of great players on it. So that offense, kind of like what the Seahawks, is really going to have to carry a lot. And I don't have enough faith in Mike McCarthy to coach any team over that kind of deficit that their defense really gives them. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right with what you said.
Yeah, like I love some of the players on the Cowboys though. Like I'll always love Amari. CeeDee Lamb's going to be absolutely an unbelievable receiver for years to come. He was so much fun to watch last year. That was a freaking Andy Dalton for most of the season, for God's sakes. Um, like yeah, so I guess sorry, I was looking at my list here. I think the other main one I kind of wanted to talk about was the Cleveland Browns. Um,
Thank
I
you.
don't I don't necessarily think the Cleveland. Sorry, I'll preface it by saying this. Um, I think the Browns had an extremely productive offseason. I think that secondary looks a lot better now. Sorry, not even looks a lot better. I think they look unreal. I think this is probably going to be one of the top five secondaries at the end of the season. I think they look that deep and that talented. Um, they're going to be getting a healthy OBJ back. Sorry, I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot of hype around this team, and I get it. OBJ is coming back. The secondary looks really good. Baker Mayfield took a step last year. Kevin Stefanski was able to kind of set his culture and his system in Cleveland, which I get. I just think there's a lot of kind of excitement going around because they almost beat the Chiefs last year. I think we just kind of need to kind of take a deep breath and kind of just collect ourselves. I think they're going to be in a tough division this year. They're playing the Ravens, they're playing the Steelers, who I mean, I don't think like they're not the winning juggernaut that the media and the fans that they want you to believe they are. But I think they're not a pushover team. The Bengals, I mean, they were bad last year. They're getting Joe Burrow back. I think this division is going to be a tough division. I think the Browns will still come out pretty well with the Ravens. I think it's a tough division, but I think the Browns and Ravens are going to be pretty high in the division, like in terms of record wise, in comparison to the Steelers and the Bengals. But like the like people seem to think that they're going to be like top four, top five, tops like kind of like basically right behind the Chiefs in the AFC standings. We had them at sixth, right, which I think is which I think is pretty generous. But I think collectively, like we shall kind of need to relax a little bit with our expectations because I think this is also a team that 2 years ago missed the playoffs with not really too many different pieces. And if you look at last year, it wasn't until like OBJ went down where they actually kind of started to really find their own. So. Um, we'll see. But I think the Cleveland Browns are maybe a tad overrated right now.
I'm glad you brought up the Bengals because I forgot about them. I did want to bring them up as one of those underrated teams because I do think they're going to have a really good year this year.
Yeah.
Well, comparably to last year, a
Right.
really good
Yep.
year this year. They
Yep.
do have a really tough division to play in, but I think the roster looks really good, and I think they can do a lot of good things. But we're not talking about the Bengals. We're talking about the Cleveland Browns, and I mean, I don't really have much to add there. They have a really, really good team, but some people rank them as the number 4 team in the league or the number 3 team in the league, and you said it. You said it in the last episode. I forget which team you were talking about last episode. I think it might have been the Giants, but you were talking about how if it isn't sustained success, then you don't trust it,
Yep.
and that's the Cleveland Browns. You need to see sustained success, and one more year of Kevin Stefanski will prove that to me and to you and to
Yep.
other people. But
A
you
hundred
know,
percent. 100%.
one year going 11-5, yeah, that's great. Let's see you do it again, and then I'll rank you as the number 4 team in the
Yep.
league.
Yep.
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I just want to add the Ravens are better than the Browns right now, in my opinion. I think
We'll see.
yeah, I think they're a better team than the
Yeah.
Browns. That's kind of the only reason I would bring up the overrated teams as the Browns. I do think they're a great team. It's just I think the Ravens are a better team, and I think maybe even the Titans and the Colts are kind of around them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's I mean, they're better than the Titans and the Colts, but I think it's reasonable to kind of put them in the same conversation almost.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where I stand with the Cleveland Browns. So I agree with you.
Yeah, like we don't think the Browns are bad or anything. I just think it's like with this team, like we've only seen them really make the playoffs once. It was an impressive run, mind you. Like they got to the second round. They were like a couple minutes away from beating the Kansas City Chiefs, but it just
Lost to
didn't.
Chad Henne.
That's right. God, that's hilarious. No, but like I think the biggest thing I'm curious to see next year or this coming season is how does OBJ mesh with Baker Mayfield because I wasn't really there before, and can they get on the same page to kind of give them like an actual legitimately like number one like passing threat? Because Jarvis Landry's great. I like Jarvis Landry a lot, and some of the other guys uh, that came up when that they kind of had to step up. Like I think it's People Jones and
Yeah,
some of the other receivers had to come up when OBJ went down were extremely impressive. If you can get OBJ to kind of elevate to that number one role with Baker Mayfield, have everyone step back, you have a really nice receiving core there, and it makes the defense have to respect you more, and actually might make the pass game, so the rush game even better than it already is, because then you can't stuff the box against Nick Chubb or against Kareem Hunt. I just think this team has a lot of upside, but again, like we said, like I need to see it. Like show me that you're this actual AFC juggernaut instead of this one good year you had last year.
exactly. Ton of upside, but let's see it.
Hmm.
Who else do you want? Is that it, or do you have any more?
That's all I got. I didn't really have too many overrated teams. Like I thought, just generally speaking, a lot of like some of the teams were pretty fair. But did you have any you wanted to add?
Yeah, I did. I thought kind of the same as you. I thought with the AFC, every team was pretty fairly rated.
Hmm.
If anything, a lot of the AFC teams were a bit underrated. But I thought some of the NFC teams were a bit overrated.
Let's hear them.
Uh, yeah. To add on to you know I have a bit of a gripe against the Arizona Cardinals, and
I knew that was coming. I knew that
and
was coming.
I just looking at the rankings here. I had them at 23, and they're like some people almost put them. Yeah, some CBS put them at 8, 11, 14.
Wow.
Dude, have you seen that defense?
Yeah.
Have you seen their defense?
But they have
It,
J.J. Watt now. He's gonna
J.J.
still
Watt and
solve all
Chandler
their
Jones,
problems.
J.J. Watt and Chandler Jones aren't what they used to be, and I, I don't want to hear it if anybody thinks they are still the guys that can get you like multiple double-digit sack seasons. Look at that secondary. That secondary is bad. Byron Murphy is not a number one cornerback right now. Neither is Malcolm Butler.
Yeah, they lost the
That
one guy to
neither is Robert Alford.
yeah.
And where are you going to play Isaiah Simmons? Are you going to play him? Vance Joseph is not a good defensive coordinator. I don't know why you still have him around. Cliff Kingsbury is not a good coach. I don't know why you still have him around. Um, the defense is not good. Yeah, bringing in Zaven Collins helps, but maybe if they play Isaiah Simmons at linebacker, maybe the linebacker core is going to be good. But that's kind of the least important part of your defense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, sure, the offense is good, but you have like 3, 4 good receivers: Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins,
Andy
um,
Isabella.
Isabella's all right.
He's all right, but like for like number 3, number 4, it's not bad.
Yeah, you could do a lot worse.
Yeah.
Um, Chase Edmonds at running back,
Solid.
maybe 2 good offensive linemen. Kyler Murray. Yeah, their team's not good. I don't know why anybody thinks their team is good. I look up and down their roster. I see maybe like 4 or 5 like good players.
Yeah.
No, I'd say like 7 good players. Is that the 8th best team in the league? Hell,
Yeah.
is that a top half team in the league? I don't see it. Kyler Murray isn't what people say he is yet. I do believe he gets there. I said this last episode.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get there. He's just not there yet. So I don't see the narrative of him carrying this team to 11, 12 wins in that stacked of a division. I just
Yeah.
don't see it.
Yeah, I know you're 100% right, and it kills me to say because I love the Cardinals. Like I like D Hop is still probably still my favorite player in the league. I think Kyler Murray, like you said, I think I like Kyler Murray a lot, but again, if we're talking about individual players, like he's probably getting there in terms of the most overrated players in the league in the sense that they're kind of talking about him as if he's like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. He could get there. Like we're not saying we're not saying he can't get there, but like again, this is like the Browns. Show us what you got. Like show us consistently what you got before we start talking about you being in like the top 1 to 2% of like the players that you're being mentioned with. Um, but yeah, I like the like the JJ Watt signing was nice, but like that defense is just it's awful. It's bad.
Hmm.
I think you could make an argument that actually probably got worse from last year, even despite even adding JJ Watt. And like again, you look like they're just in such a tough division with like they got the Rams, they got the Niners, and they got the the Seahawks. The Seahawks aren't going to be that tough for them, I don't think. But like, if you take into account you have to play the Niners and you have to play the Rams, those are 2 top 5, 2 top 10 teams. And if like, I think I can't remember how many times I played them this year, but like they're almost automatic losses, just considering like they're not going to be able to stop them, and they both have completely dynamic offenses now. So again, we'll see what happens with the Cardinals. I'm hoping they do well. I'm hoping they overachieve, but I'm definitely not counting on it, which is kind of sad to say, but it is what it is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think you got it. And the one last team I want to talk about, I'll talk about them very quickly because they're really not worth much of a talking point. It's the Atlanta Falcons. Um, they're ranked here, 22, 23, 24. I mean, I think most of the people ranking here know that they're not going to sniff the playoffs.
Including
But
me. Yeah,
yeah,
but yeah,
but
yes.
I think it's absolutely ridiculous to rank this team in the high 20s. Have you seen that roster? They have no depth. They have no talent. It's actually ridiculous. Here, let
They
me let me name the good players on this team. Matt
Matt
Ryan,
Ryan.
who is now a tier 2 quarterback. No, actually, that might be generous. He's a like number 9, number 10 quarterback in the league, probably tier 2, tier 3.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you tier two. I think he's tier two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
Calvin.
he led the league. He was like amongst the league leaders in passing yards last year. Let's give him
Yeah,
some
because they didn't
respect
have a
here.
running game. They didn't have a running game. Did you
That's
notice
fair.
that? Todd Gurley couldn't
They
do anything
had
last year.
Todd. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Now they have Mike Davis as their starting running back. He was really good last year and aided for McCaffrey, but he's an old running back. What is he going to do?
Yeah,
Good luck.
fair.
They also lost Ito Smith and Brian Hill. That was their running back depth last year. It's all gone now. I don't know what they're gonna do. They made somehow the running back room got worse.
Somehow, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Oh my God.
yeah. Calvin Ridley, who's probably the best number 2 receiver in the league.
Number one now.
Well, number 1 now, but you saw what happened with Juju when he became the number 1 receiver. Let's see what he does.
I genuinely think Ridley's different. Because he was basically number one last year with Julio out.
Yeah, we'll see. He's a good receiver. I just think he'd be better if there was somebody
Sure,
taking coverage away from him.
for sure. But you can say that with everyone though. Like,
Fine, but
see how, yeah.
Julio was the type of receiver that it didn't matter who you put on him, he'd be fine. Calvin Ridley, if he has to face number ones, if he has to face guys like Jalen Ramsey, Marshawn Lattimore, I don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. Show us, Calvin. Show us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I like him.
Yeah, I like him a lot too.
Yeah. Maybe Jake Matthews. Yeah,
I'll
put him.
That's a reach.
Yeah, okay. All right. So we're at 2.
Yeah.
Grady Jarrett.
Okay.
There's not much debate there. Probably one of the most underrated players in the league.
Yep.
Deion Jones.
Talked about Kyle Pitts in there?
Gets injured a lot. Who?
You're not gonna put Pitts in there? New shiny tight end toy?
Kyle Pitts, he's a tight end. Fine. Hasn't played a snap yet this year, but we're putting him in the player.
No, that's fair. He didn't play a game. Put that finger down. That's fair.
Yeah. Okay.
How do you feel about Hayden Hurst? Like, I'm genuinely curious. Not good.
He can't block, which is why the Ravens got rid of him for a second-round pick, and his catching abilities are fine. He's going to become an afterthought with Kyle Pitts there.
As a Hayden Hurst fantasy owner last year, I approved that message bad.
Okay. So yeah, four players worth a damn on that team. Yeah. Maybe next year you can put Russell Gage on that list. He was solid last year.
I think Pitts is gonna have a big year. I really think he will now that Julio's gone. I think Pitts and Julio are about to go off in Atlanta, but it's not Julio and Calvin Ridley are going to go off in Atlanta.
Okay, so assuming you do put Cal Pitts on that list, 2 out of those 5 players are receivers.
Yep.
So I don't know. It's just it's a tough sell. I think there might be. I personally think they're a bottom 3 team in the league.
Sure.
Because at least the Texans and the Lions have depth. This team just doesn't have depth. Look at their roster.
The Lions and Texans have depth because they have so many bad players. They're all equally bad.
The Falcons practice squad right now. I'm just saying.
I would like to try that. That'd be funny.
As slot receivers, I think we could do it.
Oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd love that.
Exactly. Special teams guys, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, that's it for that's it for overrated teams, I guess.
Yeah. We can go to coaches now.
Yeah. So coaches that are on the hot seat.
Yeah, I don't really have that many coaches that are in the hot seat this year. The reason I say that is it feels like almost all of the coaches that we brought up last year got let go either during the season or after the season. Gase got fired. Dan Quinn got fired.
Pat Patricia.
Marone. Yeah, Marone. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. Bill O'Brien was gone. We did a really good job last year. I think that was really the main. Oh, I said Anthony Lynn. Anthony Lynn got fired. The Patriots, no. Dolphins, no. Steelers, no. Vikings, Mike Zimmer. I don't think we said Mike Zimmer. Giants, no. Matt Nagy, we said, but he still has a job. Denver Broncos, Raiders, Falcons, gone. Yes, no. Did we say Doug EP or I don't think we brought up Doug EP.
No, I don't think we brought up Doug Peterson.
Okay.
But in hindsight, we probably should
have. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. So
I'll go through mine.
Wait, before you go through, I just want to say that there's probably a reason why it was just so tough to come up with them this year. If you look at them, this year, if you look at the coaches, it's either long time established coaches on good teams,
Hmm.
or really new coaches that haven't been around long enough to be fired yet, unless you're the Arizona Cardinals, who like
Sure.
to fire coaches after 1 year.
Sure.
So, because of that, there are only a few teams that have coaches that you can really say are even on the hot seat.
Yeah.
So, I'll let you go first, but that's kind of why I had a difficult time.
Okay. So I have four, and I'll quickly go. I'll go down one
Yeah,
by
go
one
through
just
all
so we
four
can
of them.
talk. Okay. So I'm gonna start off with the guy we talked about last year. That's Matt Nagy. Um, I don't even think this is his fault necessarily. Um, I more so think this is because the Bears are unfortunately in the stages where you think you're competitive, but you're not, and then you have to go into a rebuild. And typically, before you go into that rebuild, there are heads that need to be rolled. And unfortunately, I do think Matt Nagy is a part of that restarting process. Um, he was one of the people who wanted to take Mitch Trubisky, and I do think he needs to take some ownership of that because it feels like a lot of people have just been upset with I think his name is Ryan Pace, the GM
Yeah.
of the Bears.
Hmm.
Which again, you can 100% put the blame on some of the blame on the GM, but I think at some point if the coach says this is my guy, I want to take him, I can fit him in my system, and it doesn't work out like that, I do think he takes some heat for that. The offense has been absolutely atrocious while he's been there. The defense has been elite, but I think it's more of I think it's more of an indictment of how many great players they've had on that defense, and just like you could put like the worst coach in the league on that defense and they would still be fine. Um, I don't know. Like I just think there's a big storm brewing in Chicago, and I think unfortunately if like I think regardless of what happens, Matt Nagy's gone this year because I don't see the Bears making the playoffs. Unfortunately.
Okay. Uh, yeah, Matt Nagy was also the number one coach on my list.
Yeah.
Um, the Bears can either go one of two ways,
Mhm.
as they are right now. They can either say that their window's about to shut, but now is their time and go all in right now, or they can decide that now is the time to start rebuilding. And either way does not look good for Matt Nagy. Because
Doesn't.
if you take that first option, Matt Nagy's been there the whole time, and they're 0-2 in the playoffs that whole time that he's been there. So if your window is right now, this year and next year, Matt Nagy is not going to help you win right now,
Nope. Not-
as we've seen. So can't keep him. And the second option, oftentimes you like to pair a new quarterback with a new head coach.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so Matt Nagy wouldn't be sticking around for that.
Yep.
So yeah, either way, doesn't really look good for Matt Nagy. Other thing, he was the offensive coordinator for Andy Reid in Kansas City, and he was really good. And he had some good years in Chicago, but the offense hasn't really been good since 2020. And
Mhm.
sure, blame it on Trubisky, blame it on Nick Foles, whatever. But this is the NFL. You don't really get that many options.
And like I think like I just don't know where else they go at this point. They got rid of Mitch Trubisky. I think Ryan Pace will, I think there's a full scale like fire sale coming in Chicago. I think Ryan Pace will be gone. I think Matt Nagy will be gone. Uh, I just because we talked about this earlier. Allen Robinson's going to be is a free agent at the end of the year. We I think you said there's a good chance that you don't think he's going to stay. I said but like the Bears are just such a mess right now in the sense I don't they don't have an identity. They don't know what they're going for, and I think that's just that if you're a head coach, it's the worst position to be in. So that was my first one. Um, the second one I'll go with is the Denver Broncos. Vic Fangio. Um, the reason I say this is all the reasons we talked about why the Denver Broncos are an underrated team in terms of the rankings. This is an extremely complete team. The defense is solid. The offense is solid, with the exception of Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater. They went on and got Kyle Fuller, which is absolutely phenomenal. Um, they got shafted last year with injuries. Von Miller got hurt. Cortland Sutton got hurt. They're getting both those guys back this year. Assuming everyone stays healthy, this team should be making some drastic improvements on both sides of the ball. And if they don't, if Vic Fangio can't get some production out of this Denver Broncos team, I could see this being problematic because I could just see the GM and ownership being like, I don't know what else you really want from us outside of like a quarterback, but like I just think with this roster, like the quarterback isn't the only problem. We talked about like the quarterback isn't really a problem because you have Teddy Bridgewater. But again, this is a huge if the Broncos do take us if they don't produce early on because I just think the odds of them doing poorly this year is so low. I don't see it happening. But if it does, I think Vic Fangio is going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that with any coach, really. If the team
Fair.
does a lot worse than they're supposed to, then the coach is likely going to get fired.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I see where you're coming from on that one.
For me, yes,
If,
sir. So the other pro is like for me, it's also if you look at the last couple of years, like the Broncos have been nowhere near really competitive. Like maybe since like the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, like they haven't been bad, but like they haven't been really competitive, especially in that division.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Uh, before I say anything, I'm going to preface this by saying that I grouped all the coaches I have into three categories.
Okay.
The first category is the clear hot seats, and Matt Nagy obviously was the top one on that list. I have two there.
Yeah.
My second was should be fired but probably won't be, and I have two coaches there. And my third group is the hot seat hot takes,
Oh
kind
no.
of kind of fun like that. And
Yeah.
Vic Fangio was the first one I had there.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess we were thinking the same way.
Yeah.
And my what I had was pretty much the same as you. That you know, their big hole is quarterback. So if they don't make the playoffs this year or they don't do as well as they want this year, a pretty clear thing that they can do is just move up in the draft a quarterback, and if that's the case, then you're probably going to want to pair him with an offensive
New
minded head
quarterback.
coach.
Yeah. Head
Yeah,
coach. Yeah.
a guy
Fair.
like Brian Dable in Buffalo, who should have got a job this year, or Joe Grady in Carolina, who's this really hot head coaching prospect coming
Mm-hmm.
up. So, I mean, you
Yeah.
got some options, and
Yeah.
Vic Fangio hasn't really shown much. I mean, sure, he hasn't really had the opportunity to, but he hasn't shown much. And this is like we said with Matt Nagy, this is the NFL. You don't really get too many chances.
Yep.
So, you know, I think this is going to be this is going to be the year for Vic Fangio, as you said.
Yeah. Yep. And that's fair. Um, I'll save the big one I have for last. So the next one I'll go with is the Dallas Cowboys, Mike McCarthy. Um, Mike McCarthy is really running out of runway, I think, here. In the sense that I could like Jerry Jones is a man about results. Jerry Jones has invested a lot of money in this offense, and I think he's going to want to see results, even though it's not necessarily the right thing to do. If the Cowboys do anywhere near as badly as they did last year, I think Mike McCarthy's gone. Uh, Mike Nolan, they sacrificed the scapegoat Mike Nolan. I think it was last season after just absolutely horrible defensive showing. Uh, and I just I don't I don't think Mike McCarthy adds that much to that offense. We heard Aaron Rodgers talk about him. We know his opinion on him, and I don't see anything special about Mike McCarthy. I really don't. I think you could put a lot of head coaches in the position that Mike McCarthy's in right now, and could even do a potentially better job than what he's doing with the Cowboys right now. Um, I just think in Dallas, there's always such high expectations, and like you just said, this is the NFL. You don't get a lot of second chances, and with the Cowboys, this would be a massive second chance for Mike McCarthy. And frankly, I don't really see them doing that well. Again, this is another guy who I think is going to be gone at the end of the season, regardless.
Mm-hmm. Mike McCarthy, I agree with what you said. And Mike McCarthy is the second coach I have in my group two, that being coach that should be fired but won't be fired. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he's going to be fired, but that's just because he's on the Cowboys. That's the only thing. He would be fired anywhere else. Jerry
Yeah.
Jones is a man about results, but he's also a proud man that doesn't like to admit when he's wrong. And firing a
Yep.
coach after year two is him admitting that he's wrong. And I don't think he's going to
Fair.
do that. Jason Garrett was here for a long time,
Oh,
longer
God,
than he
that's
should have
right.
been.
I forgot
Overstayed
about
his
that.
welcome.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to get fired just because of that.
Mm-mm.
He should be fired for the reasons you said. And you
Yep.
know who he hired as his replacement defensive coordinator? Dan Quinn.
Yeah, right. Fuck, why? Oh my
Have
God.
they looked at the Falcons defense in the last 2 years?
It's been like
It's been
bottom
one of the
four. It's been bottom
bottom
four, like
three.
ever at
Yeah.
bottom three. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
passing on them is super easy. And
God.
you know which team has a really bad secondary? The Cowboys.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like passing on this team is going to be a no-brainer. It's going to be so easy. You know,
Yeah.
um, it's going to be that they might actually make Daniel Jones look like a good quarterback. They can make Jalen Hurts look like a good quarterback. They can make Ryan Fitzpatrick look like a great quarterback. Like this secondary is going to be like the training ground for young quarterbacks. I think
Yep.
it's going to be funny,
Oh yeah.
and Mike McCarthy is going to be a big part of it, and I think he should be fired.
Yep.
But it's Dallas. They don't really work like everybody else.
Go. Everything's bigger in Dallas, including the opportunities. Um, I got one more, and this one hurts me to say. The last one is John David Gruden. John Gruden is really, really, really running out of runway with the Raiders. Like I talked about Mike McCarthy. Um, John Gruden has been the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders for I think 2 seasons now.
Three,
Three.
maybe
I
two,
think
three.
it doesn't really matter. It might have
Yeah,
been three. I think you're right. No, it was three because he
I'll look it up. I'll look it up.
no, it was three because he came and he traded Khalil Mack. That's what it was. It was three. It was Khalil Mack, Josh Jacobs, Josh Jacobs. That's what it was. John Gruden has been the coach of the Vegas Raiders for the last 3 seasons now, slash Oakland Raiders, because he uh, they relocated.
Yeah,
There's
3 years.
nothing really. Yeah. Uh, First year he was in Oakland, they finished 4-12. Yeah, that's a like you're rebuilding, you want to get some assets, you want to draft high in the draft. That's fine. You go ahead and do that. They finished last. They drafted Cleveland Farrell. Fine, I get it. Um, Second year he's there, 7-9. So like noticeably better improvement. Some of the pieces they drafted were great for them. Josh Jacobs included. Uh, they had some really nice stories on that team. Uh, they I felt like they're starting to come up a little bit. And then last year they finished 8-8 after I think going I think 7-3 or 7-4 going into their bye. That's just simply not good enough for John Gruden. He's getting paid $100 million. I know that's also to deal with like management decisions, president of football operations, whatever the reason is. You look at what he's done. You look at what Mike Mayock has done, who I think will also be gone at the end of the season. The drafting and development of these players has been awful. There have been numerous amounts of especially in the first round. There have been a lot of first round picks you look at and you go, what are they doing? Clear reach. And again, they like their guys, which is fine, but like, can you not just trade down and get some more assets for them? I don't know. Like, sorry, we're talking about John Gruden, not Mike Mayock. Their defense has been awful year after year after year. You can argue whether that's a scheme problem or if that's a personnel problem. He's getting paid $100 million, and his I haven't looked at the numbers, but he's probably got one of the worst combined records over the last 3 years of any of the head coaches that are in the NFL, or he's amongst the worst, despite being paid all that money. Like we could probably do about as good of a job as that John Gruden is doing, and like get paid like half as much. Like I just think there's a
Half as much.
yeah, like okay, like a
I'd
third
I'd
as
take
much.
I'd take 10%. I'd
ten
take way
percent,
less than
ten
ten
percent,
percent of what he's
ten
making.
percent. So yeah, like like I just like I don't know what else he has to do to get fired because like he's shown like they're not improving. Like their situation isn't improving. The team's not improving. They're in a situation now where they're wasting like the years of like players like Josh Jacobs. Like I don't know where they go from here. Like they're probably gonna have to rebuild, which absolutely kills me to say. And they're gonna probably have to tear literally everything down despite having a brand new stadium, brand new fans, a brand new team in Vegas, and like John Gruden, man, I don't know. I actually genuinely like John Gruden. I think he's a really likable character and a really likable guy. But in terms of a coaching decisions and in the situation that he's in, I don't know how you look at anyone on the Raiders right now, like coaching staff or front office, and go like, you are safe. I don't see many, if any.
I want to go back to what you said about wasting the players on the roster. And you mentioned Josh Jacobs, and you didn't mention anyone else because you literally couldn't think of anybody else because they have done the cardinal sin of wasting draft picks in the NFL. You cannot do that. You absolutely can't do that. The Raiders have been mismanaging their team ever since John Gruden got there. You're absolutely right. Let me ask you something.
Yes.
Which draft pick has been just the absolute most heinous crime against humanity on their part? Was it Cleveland Farrell at number 4? Was it Jonathan Abram at number 23? Or was it Damon Arnett at number 19?
You know, that's a good question. Here's what I'll say. As of right now, I think it's Farrell. I don't think it's particularly close. The reason I say that is, um, Damon Arnett was a stretch was a reach. I will give you that. He did have some flashes during the season last year, but he's a rookie. Let's not forget he's a rookie. So he like I haven't given up on him yet. I don't think I think a lot of fans haven't given up on him yet. I think a lot of fans are hoping he can stay healthy, he can have a good season next year, or at least show some flashes. Jonathan Abram was basically in the same boat last year. Um, he shattered his collarbone, I think, or his clavicle like week 1 against the Broncos. He was out the whole year, so he was essentially rookie last year too. Cleveland Farrell was a 4th overall pick. You could have Devin White. Like, to me, I don't mind Abrams as much because it was like 25th overall. Like it's basically a second round pick. I would take Abram in the second round. If you look at the guys that they took Farrell over, like how like I like and people were saying at the time it was a reach. Like I think just looking at how Devin White did with with the Buccaneers last year in the playoffs especially, and you look at what Farrell's doing like to me that like and that's not even fair to Farrell because I think he actually had a pretty good bounce back year last year, but like it's like you basically went 4-12 to reach for a guy who you probably could have traded down to get if you really wanted him. That's my mindset. And I think that because Arnett and Abram were a bit lower, it's a bit more justifiable, but still, like, man, how do you reach that high for Farrell?
Yeah, okay, you got a point. I mean, there's no wrong answer here. The right answer is really they were all terrible picks.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
you pick Jonathan Abram, who's playing like a 6th round pick right now at
Hmm.
27 overall. Tre'Davious White was a 27th overall pick.
Oh my God. Yep.
Just
Yep.
I think it was 1 year before, maybe 2 years before that.
Yeah.
And you know, Damon Arnett was not supposed to go anywhere near the first round.
19.
Neither was
Yep.
Jonathan Abram. Cleveland Farrell was actually supposed to go in the first, maybe first half of the second
Okay.
round, but still 4th overall is ridiculous.
Yep.
Absolutely ridiculous. So they're all heinous. They're all terrible. You can make an argument for all 3.
Yep.
Really, yeah, it's awful. But that's not really John Gruden. The thing is, kind of like Bill O'Brien last year,
Yeah. Hmm.
John Gruden's going to get roped into the decisions he makes,
Yep.
and that's where it kind of comes into. I have him as the first coach in my group 2 should be fired, but won't be fired, and it's because of the Raiders organization being, the Raiders, and the fact that he's being paid. He's still being owed like $60 million over the next 6 years.
Yeah. And Mark Davis loves his John Gruden. I because of Gruden's relationship with the Raiders before, like Mark Davis cannot get enough of John Gruden. It, it,
Yeah,
it sucks, but like the one thing I'll also say is we look at the position the Raiders are in. We talk about the guys that are getting drafted. Um, well, Gruden obviously has a big say in that with the role he has. Let's not forget how Mike Mayock got his GM position. Uh, he was working with John Gruden at ESPN, and he basically said, "Come work with me in Vegas. I want you as my GM, not anyone else, not like any of the former players or any of the former like." He chose Mike Mayock, And like we said with Matt Nagy, some of the decisions you make in this job have to at least I think come with some accountability. But like it's Mark Davis. I have no idea. I just feel bad because they got Darren Waller as a like basically off the Ravens practice squad. He's now the third best tight end in the league. Derek Carr is one of the best. Despite what other Raiders fans have you believe, Derek Carr is one of the top 10, sorry, top 10, top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL, and they're basically wasting his talent. Josh Jacobs, another great running back. Uh, but man, like they've done nothing of actual value since John Gruden got here, and I think it's only a matter of time. So again, we'll see what happens. I think you're right. I doubt he gets fired, but fingers crossed.
Yeah. John Gruden is a good head coach.
Yep.
He is a low top half head coach in the NFL, just purely head coach. The players like him. The players like playing for him. And all things considered, the
Yeah,
only thing you can really
I've
hold against, okay, maybe not. He's a tough, like old fashioned, hard nosed head
yeah.
coach. So,
I,
some players will like that, some players won't.
from what I've heard, I think majority of players like him, but he's very tough on his quarterbacks, which is fair. And it takes a very special type of quarterback to run under John Gruden, which I think is another again part of the problem. But again, like generally speaking, I think he's very well liked. At least if that's my perception.
Yeah, exactly. What I will say in response to what you've said, I think what you've said is almost all correct. Um, the If you're talking about his record over the last little while, the team's gone 7-9, 8-8 over the last few years. So his record is fine. His record's okay. Over the last 3 years, it's better than Adam Gase's record. It's better than, I mean, that's a terrible example, but better than a lot of the other coaches. Some of the other coaches that have kept their job over this time. A lot of teams have done poorly. The Raiders have actually stayed relatively consistent, and that's because of John Gruden's coaching, despite the team being kind of bad. The thing that you can really hold against him as a coach is the fact that they choke down the stretch, and
Yep.
that's at
I'm
least
look,
partially on
yep.
him.
I'm looking.
Um,
I'm looking at their schedule right now
yeah,
from the 2019 season. Hold on. Uh, okay, here we go. So the Raiders beat the Bengals 17 to 10 November 17th, 2019. 70 to 10, okay? Lost to the Jets 34 to 3, 40 to 9 to the Chiefs, 42 to 21 to the Titans, 20 to 16 to the Jaguars. They beat the Chargers 24 to 17, and the Broncos beat the Raiders 16 to 15 in the final week when they were already out of the playoffs. That was 2019. And three game stretch against the Jets, Chiefs, and Raiders is completely unacceptable.
right. Yeah, it's yeah.
It's a mess.
They've
Like
they've
it's just
they've
like
had in 2019 at least they kind of had a playoff spot handed to them on a silver platter, and they just didn't take it. And last year they really fell apart at the end. At a certain point, that has to fall on the coach. And so your point about Mike Mayock being hired because of collusive reasons, the dude was heralded around the league as this drafting guru. So it was only a matter of time before some sucker decided that he was going to be the guy to reverse their fortunes. And I mean, you could see, I could totally see the Raiders doing that. I don't even think it was collusion. Maybe Gruden put in a good word for him, but I think it was only a matter of time before a franchise like the Lions or the Browns thought he was the guy and brought him in. So, but obviously, still a bad decision, and Gruden does have to take some of the blame for it. Um, and they, like a lot of the teams we've talked about so far, the team has not gotten better this offseason. And considering the Chargers are getting a lot better, the Broncos are still really good, and the Chiefs are still the Chiefs. That's rough. That's really rough. So
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. John Gruden's a good coach, but this is what he has done over the last few years. Not a lot of coaches come back from it.
Their schedule is so hard too. Oh my God. I'm looking at like, oh my God.
Yeah, they got to start off against Baltimore. That's not easy.
Baltimore, Steelers, Dolphins, Chargers, Bears, Broncos, Eagles, Giants, Chiefs, Bengals, Cowboys.
That's
Okay, so So it's not awful. It's not
At
awful.
least they get
They
the
started the
NFC
12.
East. At
Yep.
least they get the
They're
NFC
actually, yeah.
East. That's a little plus
But they
there.
need to lose. They need to lose. They need to get a good draft pick, bro. 'Cause
All right, let's get off the
it's making
Cowboys.
me sad.
I feel
I
like
mean
you're
the
or no
Raiders. Let's get off the
the
Raiders.
Raiders and the Cowboys. Those are teams I don't really want to talk about. They're in
Yep.
tough spots. So yeah.
Yeah. You can go
So
ahead. I talked about my coaches already.
yeah, those are four coaches that I had on my list in various places. Like I
Yeah.
said, I had the clear picks, the should be fired but probably won't be, which you got
Mm-hmm.
Gruden and McCarthy, and Vic
Oh
Fangio,
wait,
the
wait, sorry,
hot seat,
sorry.
hot takes.
I forgot one. Again, the one I forgot was Matt LaFleur. Uh, that might be a hot take. The reason I say he might, sorry, I'm not saying, I guess it's a hot seat. The reason I think he could be fired is the whole Aaron Rodgers saga is going to end with the Packers cleaning house. We're talking GM, we're talking coach, we're talking Jordan Love probably traded. And to be honest, I wonder again. I wonder. I'm not saying this, and I'm not saying I know anything, but I wonder how much that just awful last call against against the Broncos sits with the mind of the GM. I don't think he. I just think with the whole Aaron Rodgers saga going on, not a lot of people are talking about Matt LaFleur being a potential guy that's going to be gone because Aaron Rodgers doesn't particularly like Matt LaFleur. I think they get along, but in terms of like head coach, I don't think they get along. And with the current state of the Packers, if they want to bring him back, I think Matt LaFleur is going to be at the top of the list for Aaron Rodgers, along with Brian Gutekunst.
Honestly, I think there are at least 25 coaches in the NFL that are getting fired before Matt LaFleur gets fired.
Okay,
That's my
that's
personal
fair.
opinion.
That's fair.
He's
If
gone
we're
13 and
if
3
we're
in his
going
two
if
seasons
we're
in the
going
league.
yeah if we're going performance alone, I 100% agree. I'm just saying based off of the Aaron Rodgers situation. If they want to keep him, he's gonna have a list of demands, and they're gonna have to follow it. So I think it's going to be either you stay or I stay. And that's both the GM and the coach, not just Aaron and not just Matt LaFleur. That's just my take. But again, if it's just performance, I 100% agree with you. I
Honestly, I think Matt LaFleur is more of an untouchable on that roster than Jordan Love is. I think they trade Love before they fire LaFleur.
I don't
Easy.
disagree.
That's an easy decision for me.
I don't disagree. But if Aaron Rodgers comes into your office and says, I want you to trade Jordan Love, I want you to fire Matt LaFleur, I want you to get rid of Brian Gutekunst to the owner. I think you trade Aaron Rodgers first before you do that anyway. I think you trade Aaron Rodgers first anyways. But like if you're insistent on keeping him, you're gonna have to do it. That's my only
If you're
thing.
insistent on keeping Aaron Rodgers, that's
Exactly.
the kicker.
If that's the huge if. But if
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's just too big an if. Yeah, I think they'll be happy to fire Brian Gutekunst. He's not good at his job.
hmm
I don't think he's good at his job. But
Yep.
you know, Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur getting rid of both of them to keep you happy. If you're a 38-year-old quarterback, I don't
Yep.
care if you just won MVP last year. That's a really tough ask.
There's gonna be there's gonna be a ending to the situation, and there's gonna either be Aaron Rodgers gets traded, or there's a major shakeup in Green Bay. I suspect we're gonna see number 12 on another team, but I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what the fallout is if they do bring back Aaron Rodgers. Because I do think if they're gonna bring him back, there's gonna be significant change, which has been reported by Ian Rappaport, by who else? It doesn't really matter. People are reporting that there's going to basically be a massive change if Aaron Rodgers comes back, which I'd be fascinated to see. But anyways, I was just basically speaking off the situation, not off of results. But because, like you said, Matt LaFleur has probably been one of the top 5 head coaches in the NFL since he came into the league. So, anyways,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a burning hot take, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, we're nothing if not entertaining and give you some good ideas.
yeah,
Um, yeah, so I mean, as you could probably imagine, I just didn't have him on my list anywhere. So I mean, I had a few coaches that you didn't mention, so
yeah.
I'll just go through them. So group one is the clear cut. These guys are definitely on the hot seat coaches, and Matt Nagy was the first one. And there's another one on that list.
You
I'll
got
get into
Cliff
that.
on there, don't you?
Well, actually, Cliff is in my group 3, the hot takes. I think that's a
Okay.
hot
Sorry.
take, but
I'll let you
I'll
go
talk about
ahead.
him in a second.
I'll let you go.
Group 2 is the should be fired but probably won't be. John Gruden and Mike McCarthy are there, and then my hot seat hot takes: Vic Fangio, and then Cliff Kingsbury, and I have 2 other coaches in there. So, but those are a little bit more speculative. I'll just talk about my clear cut. I think it's Zach Taylor in Cincinnati. He hasn't really shown much as a
Okay.
coach. I think if your window's gonna open soon, you need a coach that can show something right away. And you have a lot of really good options available. Like I said, Joe Grady was Joe Burrow's offensive coordinator at LSU. He's a pretty good option. Brian Dable in Buffalo did a lot of great stuff. Eric Bieniemy in Kansas City. If you want offensive coordinator coaches that can really make a difference for a young quarterback, you got 3 amazing options right there. And Zach Taylor has brought this team jack shit in 2 years and really hasn't shown much as a coach at all. If you want the team to go somewhere, I think you got to fire him. And I don't think he's shown anything to keep him around. They kept Marvin Lewis around for like 15, 17 years, but at least the defense was always like pretty
Yeah.
with him there.
Fair.
I don't think Zach Taylor has anything redeemable about him as a coach right now. I just don't see it. So even a complacent, really hands-off ownership like the Bengals have might recognize that and say, we need to win with Joe Burrow. We got to do something now. So I think he's a clear-cut option for the end of the year. Because let's be honest, the Bengals, as great as I think they are, as good as I think they are as a roster, they got 6 really tough divisional games, and it's just gonna be tough sledding for them all year. So
Yeah.
that's why I have him there. I'll just quickly go through my hot takes because I don't have too much to say about them. Cliff Kingsbury has not shown anything as a head coach. I honestly think he's holding the team back, and that's saying something because I'm not that high on Kyler Murray, but I think he's better than he's shown just because Cliff Kingsbury has been really conservative with play calling for a guy Kyler Murray is not a conservative player. I just don't. And the defense play calling has been god awful, but that's partially Vance Joseph. I think if you think as the Arizona Cardinals, if people think that you're the 8th best team in the league and you're playing the way that you did last year, again this year, that entire coaching staff is gonna go. They have to go. If you think that roster is anywhere near top 10 in the league, this coaching staff needs to get the fuck out of town. That's my personal opinion. I don't like the Arizona Cardinals. I don't really, but like I think Cliff Kingsbury's the issue. I think Kyler Murray could do better with a head coach. And I just named 3 great offensive head coaches that would do a lot better with Kyler Murray. But what do I know? And the last 2 coaches that I have here are just old souls that have been on their respective teams for long periods of time.
I think I know one of them.
They've had lots of success. But
is one of them
now,
Mr. Peter?
Yeah,
Mr. Peter
Pete Carroll's one of them.
Yeah.
The Seahawks are this would be the time really to kind of rebuild.
With
Russ kind of being discontent, with the team not looking very good, with the rest of the division looking a lot better. This would be the time to rebuild after this year. And I think that would start with Pete Carroll. That's all I really need to say. I think he's a good coach. I just think that there are a lot of coaches surpassing him. And for him to be like one of the top 3 highest paid coaches in the league, I just don't think he's performing at that level anymore. And the other one is Mike Zimmer. He just got re-signed to a 3-year extension. And the first year of that 3-year extension, which was this past year, didn't look good. I don't see it getting that much better. That's all I'm saying. Maybe they make the playoffs, but I don't see them going too far in the playoffs. I don't think Mike Zimmer's the guy anymore. I think it won't be this year. If it's not this year, it's next year. I'm sorry. I like the coach. I think he's one of the best defensive minds in the league. But I don't think he lasts this long. And those are the coaches I think are probably going to go.
The Pete Carroll situation to me will be interesting because I 100% think you're right. In the sense that this is like the perfect time for them to let him go. My thing is, I could totally see the Seattle Seahawks being like, we will honor your contract as long as you want to stay here. Because I think what what the fans of Seattle will say, and at least in my opinion, to some extent, is I think he's at least somewhat earned that, given the success that he brought them earlier on in his career. Now, should that be relevant? Probably not, considering you're not paying him for what he brought you. You're paying him for what he's currently bringing you, which is fair. But I also think for the Seattle Seahawks current situation where they're going nowhere, they would at least let him ride out his time because like Russ is probably gone sooner rather than later, whether we like it or not. Whether it's this year or next year, we'll see. I think once Russ is gone, we're probably going to hear about Pete Carroll retiring. Um, but we'll see. I mean, I think he loves to coach, but I don't see him getting fired. I think it's going to be more so be like either he retires or he steps down. I don't see the Seahawks actually firing him. That's just my opinion. Mike Zimmer though, I 100% agree with. The Vikings looked awful for large chunks of the season last year, and Mike Zimmer's been there for a while, and I think at some point you might just need to change it up to get a new voice in there. I 100% agree with.
Perfect. Yeah, that's all we really need to say. And I
Yeah.
think this episode's gone on quite a long time. So,
We're at almost an hour and a half.
oh, perfect. Yeah, we've just had a lot to say this episode.
We did. Hey, you know what? If you didn't like it, too bad.
Yeah.
But
If you don't like it, then leave a comment telling us what you didn't like
yeah,
about the episode.
and smash that like button.
Yeah.
No, but
No.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you'll hear again from us soon. Uh, what else is new? But yeah, we're not doing anything, so we're just kicking around, waiting for stuff to do. But yeah, if you liked it, if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to follow our podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And yeah, I guess we will see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.